I remember the first time I saw an Apple product. I remember it so clearly because it was the first time I realized when I saw this product, I got a very clear sense of the people that designed it and made it. A big definition of who you are as a designer, it's the way that you look at the world. And I guess it's one of the sort of curses of what you do is that you're constantly looking at something and thinking, why is it like that? Why is it like that and not like this? And so in that sense, you're constantly designing. When we're designing a product, we have to look to different attributes of the product, and some of those attributes will be the materials that it's made from and the form that's connected to those materials. So for example, with the first iMac that we made, the primary component of that was the cathode ray tube, which was spherical. We would have an entirely different approach to designing something like that than the current iMac, which is a very thin, flat panel display. Other issues would be, just physically, how do you connect to the product? So for example, something like the iPhone, everything defers to the display. A lot of what we seem to be doing in a product like that is actually getting design out the way. And I think when forms develop with that sort of reason, and they're not just arbitrary shapes, it feels almost inevitable. It feels almost undesigned. It feels almost like, well, of course it's that way. I mean, why wouldn't it be any other way? This is the bezel for the iMac. When we removed the aluminium for the display in the center here, we actually take that material and then we can make two keyboard frames from it. These are literally just a couple of the stages of how you make the MacBook Air. Rough cutting, this is for the keyboard well. And there is a remarkable efficiency and beauty to just how much a single part can do. And I think that's one of the things that we push ourselves on, is trying to figure out, well, can we do the job of those 6 parts with just one? This part actually starts off as this extrusion. And so this is an aluminium extrusion that goes through multiple operations, most of them CNC machined operations, to end up with this part. And so you can see, just a dramatic sort of transformation between this raw blank and the final part. But what we end up with is a part that's got all of the mounting features, so all of the bosses, this is just one part. But this one part is providing so much functionality. And this one part really does enable this product. So so much of the effort behind a product like the MacBook Air was experimenting with different processes. There's a completely non-obvious, but the way that you hold, to get from this part to this part, there are an incredibly complex series of fixtures to hold this part in the different machine stages. And we end up spending a lot of time designing fixtures. The design of this, in many ways, wasn't the design of a physical thing. It was figuring out process. It's really important in a product to have a sense of the hierarchy of what's important and what's not important by removing those things that are all vying for your attention. An indicator has a value when it's indicating something. But if it's not indicating something, it shouldn't be there. It's one of those funny things. You spend so much more time to make it less conspicuous and less obvious. And if you think about it, so many of the products that we're surrounded by, they want you to be very aware of just how clever the solution was. When the indicator comes on, I wouldn't expect anybody to point to that as a feature, but at some level, I think you're aware of a calm and and considered solution that therefore speaks about how you're going to use it, not the terrible struggles that we as designers and engineers had in trying to solve some of the problems. That's quite obsessive, isn't it?
We now have a new generation of products where the form bears absolutely no relation to the function. I mean, look at something like an iPhone and think of all the things it does. In ye olden days of sort of what are called analog products, in other words, they're not digital, they're not electronic, something like, say, a chair